incredibly important breaking news. The Associated Press has just reported it's official. Donald Trump is elected the President of the United States of America. He is the 45th President of the United States, and this is a seismic political earthquake that will have reverberations around the world tonight. So to confirm, Donald Trump, according to the Associated Press, is the new President of the United States. Wow.
Many Chinese see him as having a distressing level of volatility.
I don't think Trump is reliable. I've got the feeling that there is going to be chaos in the U.S. under his presidency. He's a political outsider, not professional enough to run the country.
I believe that Trump has been putting on a show from the beginning of the presidential campaign to promote his own brand. I don't think he's taking it seriously.
So, Suda, let me start with you. What have you heard today here in Berlin? How big is the shock of Trump's victory?
So I think most of the representatives of the established political parties, the SPD, the Greens, and the CDU from the Bundestag came out and looked visibly shocked and said that this would be a break in transatlantic relations, a break in the history of America. But of course, Chancellor Merkel, the leader that she is in the world stage, she offered a congratulations to Donald Trump that was very diplomatic.
Very diplomatic. Not so diplomatic is what we heard from someone who is on this Foreign Relations Committee in the Bundestag, Norbert Röttgen. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
And I'm very worried about this election, of course, because of the way he behaved, the way he campaigned, capitalizing and stoking hatred and anger and emotions, and making remarks by putting NATO in question or accommodating Vladimir Putin. So we are very worried here in Germany and Europe.
Mexicans woke up to the worst possible news after the US elections. For those at this taco stand, horror mixed with disbelief.
I found out really early today and I felt annoyed, angry with Trump, because if our country is bad now anyway, now he's won, things are going to be worse.
I think it would have been awesome to have a female leader, and it would have set a great example.
America has spoken. This is who they want. This is a reflection on where they are.
The idea of Donald Trump is really like a traumatic thing for all of us everywhere in the world.
I think it's a catastrophe on all fronts.
I will engage without delay in a discussion with the new American administration, which takes office on the 20th of January. But I will do that with watchfulness and frankness, because certain positions taken by Donald Trump during the American campaign must be confronted in light of the values and interests that we share with the United States.
For me, he is a man with a lot of money and little understanding of issues, and that I consider very dangerous. He is self-obsessed. He shouldn't have the job of the most powerful man on earth, also because he doesn't have any experience in political life. It is very sad that a country as large as the US has found no other president. Very sad.
I think that what Africa has to do is to prepare for the worst-case scenario, which would mean that the America under Donald Trump would focus first on American national interests and not necessarily on global interests, and not necessarily, therefore, on African interests.
The question of exactly how to keep going has kept politicians in Brussels very busy. Europe was a little shocked when it woke up this morning, terrified because America had chosen a president who obviously does not represent those values that the Americans, for example, painstakingly taught us after the war. Many in the EU are worried about the rise of populists across Europe. They fear America's decision could embolden voters in France and Holland to follow suit and make radical choices in elections next year. I think once the hangover is gone, that it's imperative to think about what made it possible for Donald Trump to become President of the United States. Why his offer of a less liberal, less tolerant, smaller world, got so much support.
Donald Trump being a man who has spoken very negative things about Africa, and our president come to say that she's saddened by his election, it means that trade, America-Liberia trade relationship will be hampered. There will be a lot of aid that shall come to our country that will be held by Donald Trump.
But I think it's disingenuous to say that this election was not about race. The racial component was incredibly important. Economics, I actually think less so. So it has to be said that there are long-term structural issues, the digitization of work, robotics, and so on, that are not going to be in Trump's hands to correct. Old steel mills and factories are not coming back. But it's really weird to me how we pussyfoot around the kind of malodorous, toxic element of race, which has played an incredibly important part of this. Anti-Semitism has long been part of populism. It was nakedly part of populism in the early 20th century. Even today, there were sinister references by the likes of Jeff Sessions to George Soros, who was singled out as a particularly odious figure in a kind of international banking conspiracy. Melanie knows very well what these anti-Semitic dog whistle tunes are like. This too is part of populism. We're facing, look, Evan, we're facing a cataclysmic moment. Melanie's right to say it's a populist revolt. It's nothing to do with conservative Republican politics. It amuses me to hear Eric Cantor imagine that things are going to go on as they always did, and the Republican Party will restrain Donald Trump.
Let me put these to Melanie.
They won't. They won't. Why should he let them?
Let me put these to Melanie. Let me put these to Melanie. What do you hear when you hear that point?
Simon, calm down, dear. Race and anti-Semitism.
I don't want to calm down. Don't patronise me.
Racism and
it's not a moment for calm. It's not a moment
Clearly.
for calm. It's a moment for contesting what seems to be a very dangerous point in American history.
Well, my first reaction was almost to cry, and then I found out both my kids were crying on the telephone, and it's got awful. The thing is that the whole world is veering to the right, and it's probably almost inevitable. But so it has to, it's like the same Brexit effect, and the French are going to go also to the right, and it's just, we're very scared. It's actually scary.
Also ich bin eigentlich auch schockiert, dass das möglich ist. Obwohl, also ich bin auch schockiert, dass so ein grosses Land nicht mehr Auswahl hat als zwei solche Personen, die am Schluss an der Spitze sind. Also ich kann es wenig glauben, und es macht mir eigentlich auch Angst.
Okay, we are absolutely shocked, and my daughter said the Americans are stupider than everybody believed. I'm sorry.
Well, to be honest, my body reacted, like my whole body was shaking, and I didn't know if I should throw up or start crying, and it's really, I'm still very upset about it.
Ich bin sehr enttäuscht.
Wieso?
Weil so einen Kandidat hätte ich mir nie gewünscht.
Ich glaube, so einem Mann sollte man nicht so viel Verantwortung geben.
Ja, das geht mir auch so. Also ich habe schon Angst. Ich weiss nicht, was da noch alles rauskommen kann.
Wie man als Frau hat können wählen, für diesen Mann kann ich auch nicht nachvollziehen. Also.
Ja.
From the perspective of the person I thought was best qualified to be president of America and of the free world, I felt disappointed. From perspective of a woman, being a woman, and having a qualified woman like Hillary Clinton run for that office and come so close to it and is unable to take it, I felt disappointed.
Shock, disbelief, and what happened to the polls? What happened to competence? What happened to experience?
It's hard for this country, and we'll have to see what's coming up next, how the markets will react in the next weeks, which will be the hardest, and then wait to stabilise us. But for now, it's general sadness.
Sad to think that a world exists now in which the world's economic power will be governed by a person that led his campaign based totally on lies, and that a person that is deeply prepared like Hillary, because people don't like her, is not in a position in which she would be much better.
I support Hillary 100% and can't believe that someone that has this platform of racism and discrimination really has people supporting him.
If you look at this, it's a great front page that says, very simply, American Psycho. That's a shadowy picture of Trump in the background. All you see is his hair and his fingers there, obviously borrowing the title from Bret Easton Ellis's book about a psychopathic killer. Now, Libe is clearly in shock, and it evokes what it calls a nightmare that's taken shape, a dread that cannot be shaken off. A brutal and unpredictable candidate, a demagogue, is going to have the supreme power in the largest democracy in the world. So you really get a sense that even Libe doesn't believe that he managed to win.
And Ms. Campbell is my guest from near Paris this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I had fully expected to be talking to you about the significance of the first female United States president. Not to be. What is your reaction overall to what happened?
Well, I'm very disappointed, obviously. I think it would have been an extraordinary step forward. I think Hillary Clinton would have done an admirable job. But I think what disturbs me more is the nature of her defeat, that I think Donald Trump is not someone who is going to be a positive advocate for women. He has some very retrograde views. And I think that's really worrisome to me.
This is not the result I hoped for, but it is the verdict of the American people, and we have to respect that.
There is a sense of surreal bewilderment around Westminster at the reality of President Trump. But Theresa May can do business with Donald Trump. In fact, post-Brexit, she must do business with him. Britain now at the front of Donald Trump's queue. The question, where exactly is it leading?